Get started. The first time I seen crack cocaine it was a little bit of before Melvin Butler came to Fremont High School and picked me up. We was in the parking lot of Fremont High School and all the girls was looking at he had a Seville with Mail Dog in the window that had big hubs on his Seville. It was like a candy apple. It was like a burgundy and another burgundy. And we was in the student parking lot and all the girls was looking at Melvin. And Melvin was just thinking he was going to lock. And I wanted to be noticed, so I said, "What's up, Mail Dog?" And he was like, "Hey, what's up, Fish?" And you know, all the girls was like, "Oh, you know Mail Dog, huh?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've been knowing Melvin, all my life. I do a little front thing, because Melvin was a big time guy back then." So he said, "Man, he said, "Man, I came and looked for you the other day, man. Why you didn't come to my house?" I said, "Man, I was getting this money, man. I was working for my brother selling weed, man." And he said, "Nah, man, it's some bigger stuff than that, man. This remind me of the Nino Brown situation when they was in the Jeep and they was talking about this is gonna be the new drug." So the day he took me, at that same day, he took me over to his house on 90, over to the spot on 96 and Avalon, right behind M&M's. And he had a few guys in there. That was working, and the money wasn't always right. So he said, "Man, I need y'all to leave and stuff." So after I got familiar with the Melvin Butler, with his process, I was at another spot because we had to rock it up, and it was down the street from his house. And it was an old lady. She was about 75 years old, and they was in there smoking Primos. And he said, "Yeah, man, we finna rock up some cocaine today." But I had seen powder before, but I had never really seen no crack cocaine. So when we started doing the process, he had these little vials called they was like little vials. They had some small ones and some long ones, but he started having small ones. So he was cooking up some ounces. So this girl came over there, and I'm looking at the girl, and I said, "I know you've heard from somewhere," but I ain't really saying that because this process was kind of strange. It was a big pot on the stove, and it was boiling water, and he had these scales, he had baking soda, and he had a bunch of bottles. So when the girl come in, I kind of like noticed her, and while he told me this is the girl that cooked the cocaine. So he told me she charged $100 an ounce. He had a few ounces at the house. So she started preparing the cocaine, and then after Melvin left, I started talking to her. I said, "Hey, man, I know you from somewhere." She said, "Yeah, Ronald Fisher, we went to Miramani Elementary School together. I've been knowing you for years." Her name was Andrea. I'll never forget her because we went to elementary, and she was kind of like a tall girl with real thick lips, but she was kind of cool. But I had knew her from elementary school, so I said, what is you doing?" She said, "This is how I make my money. I charge $100 an ounce. For each ounce, I get $100. So if it's 10 of them, I get $900. I did $1,000. So I say, "Well, I'm gonna watch you." So I started watching her. She said, "Well, I need you to put the baking soda inside of these bottles after I put the grams in there, because we were selling grams for $100. And she started doing the process, and I started looking at her, and I started noticing how delicate cocaine was, because if you break it, it's a lot of money. So when she started rocking up cocaine, I started watching her. And this was a big deal because later on, I started learning how to cook cocaine myself. So after a while, after a lot of people, they were scared to cook cocaine, so I started actually experimenting on the crumbs and on the little bottles, and I started getting my own thing together, and I started learning how to cook cocaine. So I became a cook. I met a bunch of cooks and stuff all over the city, but you had some big time cooks. They was cooking up a lot of stuff for Whitey and a few other guys. So what happened, when I started being a cook, I learned how to make a living for myself. But to make a long story short, I remember one day, man, I went over to the Grape Streets, and I needed some double up. I had just got out of jail from doing 8 months, and I was in 4800, and I seen a lot of guys in 4800, especially a lot of Compton guys. They had money, and I was trying to figure out how could I tap into this cocaine business. So I went over to the Grape Streets, and this was a teaching moment for me, because when I went over to the Grape Streets, I seen how they had the back doors of their spots secured, so when you kick the door in, it wouldn't go all the way in, it just like stop. So when I went in there, guy said, "Hey man, where you from?" I said, "I'm from 76, man." He said, "What you need?" I said, "I got $500. He said, "All right, put something on the scale." He said, "Okay, man, listen, that dude from East Coast throwing some good stuff on there. So he threw me some good stuff on there. And I got my stuff and I left. But I learned how to really be a businessman from the guys from Compton. I'm talking about when I seen these Compton guys, man, they was really knew they stuff. But I met them in the county jail. And then when I went to the Grape Streets, those is one of the guys that I really paid attention to, because those guys from Grape Street, they have a certain kind of process that they do. They real neat. They calculate their time. They do it real the way it's supposed to be done. And that's why I learned from a guy named Spike. Spike was from Grape Street, and I learned from a guy named T.I.D.A. T.I.D.A. with me and Spike, we used to be over Melvin Butler's house on 96. It was me, Spike, Merk, Ant, Mark, and another guy named, I forgot his name. He used to be in one house. It was Aaron. Desi used to come through there. A lot of guys used to come through there. And at the same time, I had started learning how to cook cocaine. And cocaine, man, was really expensive, because the ounces was $2,100 when I first started knowing how expensive cocaine was. And we had a thing that we would sell 0.10 of a gram for $100. So you're gonna make like about $3,000 off an ounce, and you paying like $2,000, but you selling them so fast that people, they didn't know we was selling so fast. So we was making like $1,000 off each ounce, and that's big time when you got 20 or 30 ounces. So I started learning how to cook cocaine. Then I moved over there on 49th in Hoover, over there by the Hoovers. And I knew I was going with this girl named Stacy. She had a brother named Jamal. He was a major cook. And I started going with Stacy. And her brother was a cook, and she had a little brother named Argo. That's when I first moved over there around the Olympics. I met a lot of guys over there, Looney, Big Looney. I met Sino, Argo, Euless. That's when I seen Bam and a bunch of other guys. But to be able to be a top guy in LA, man, you had to know how to cook your stuff in a certain way where it wouldn't have air holes in it. And as I learned how to cook, I started getting bigger deals to cook for people. And I met this girl named Dee Dee. Dee Dee lived on 112th between Yukon and Doty. And her mom, her name was Libby. And I started cooking over there. Then one day, she told me that she needed me to go to the jungles and cook. And I went over there and I met this girl named Stacy. Stacy used to be married to this guy named Suge. Suge had a candy apple red Rolls Royce. And he was a young guy, and he was real mean kind of guy, but they say he used to be on Crenshaw a lot. That's the first time I seen Ice-T. Ice-T used to be at this club called the Ritz. I used to see Ice-T in his little Porsche riding down the street. This was the movie Beach Street, and the other movie where they had Turbo and all them dancing. And I used to see IT all the time, but I had another friend that grew up with me named Greg Broussard. He was one of the guys that ended up being, they called him Egyptian Lover, and he used to be in Uncle Jam's Army, and he was a real good DJ. We went to Monroe to school together, and he used to be rapping and stuff like that. But to get back to the cocaine, I started cooking cocaine, and I was cooking cocaine over in the jungles for a girl named Stacy, and she was like, "Hey man, how much do you charge to cook?" I said, "Don't worry about it, because you're a good friend of Dee Dee's." And I also met another guy named Dale. Dale always needed me to cook for him too. So I started going to different cities, different areas, cooking cocaine. That's how come I really learned how the business, and I really learned how to cook cocaine, and I really learned how to make it, put a little bit extra soda in it to make it a little bit bigger. And that was my cocaine cooking process. And then later on, I figured out that if you put cocaine in water, you can't see it. And that's when I started taking cocaine cross country, because if you put cocaine in water, the dog can't see it, but he can smell it. But if you glue the top back on, you can't smell it or see it. And that's why they call me Fish, because I was putting kilos of cocaine in water and driving it to different cities. And that's why we had a big drought in Fort Worth in 1990. In 89, it was a drought, and couldn't nobody get no cocaine but me. And I had the smartest, being so smart that I was the one that brought it down when nobody else can have it. And other people was losing their houses, they was losing their cars, they was losing their jewelry, they was losing everything because they couldn't get no drugs. And I was one of the first guys that I think that was putting it in water.